Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Saturday to each and every one of you. It should come as no surprise to most of you that we live in a mafia state. There is literally mafia groups in almost every single economic sector of this country, and it kind of makes sense when you have a mafia government, right? A government that handles itself like a mafia. It is going to invite some of the worst criminals in the country. You look at every single official of the ANC, and they're all involved in some kind of weird shenanigans. I can't legally say that it's all criminal, but let's just say it's weird, right? Our own president currently started his tenure as president with a scandal involving his couch, right? And money that was just there for some reason. So when you have stuff like this, it stands to reason that criminals will eventually just permeate the entirety of your country. And I think what makes South Africa even worse in this scenario is in many ways it feels like these criminals are connected to the government. For example, General Mkhwanazi, about two and a half months ago, made this exact allegation that the minister, or the then police minister, currently on holiday on the taxpayers' dole, Mkhunu, was alleged to be involved in mafia activity and criminal gang activity, and basically giving these criminals just a blank slate to do whatever the hell they want, right? Becky Shelley apparently has been involved and is being involved in this case. You have a clear push by people in the media to slander General Mkhwanazi, and I don't want to make an argument here that General Mkhwanazi is a good guy or isn't. The problem for me is at this point the ANC and their corruption permeates so much of South African society that I find it very difficult that anyone employed by this government would be a good person, especially in top positions, right? I'm not talking about your rank and file worker in the municipal buildings, right? They're probably very, very good and they really want to do their jobs. I'm talking about the people that hold like police commissioners. There is no way that a person becomes a police commissioner in the ANC's South Africa without being connected to one or more of the factions within the ANC. And if all of those factions, as I suspect, are corrupt, the people that they appoint will be appointed in order to protect their corrupt activities. This would mean that someone like General Mkhwanazi would also be involved in a lot of criminal activity. His criminal activity would just be different to that of anyone else. What is interesting, though, is that the Daily Maverick, News 24, pretty much all of these guys have gone after General Mkhwanazi in insane fashion, right? They're all attacking him, sometimes with the most asinine articles ever. Like, for example, this piece from the Daily Maverick that sort of takes two things. And they say, in order to judge whether or not he's a good police commissioner, we're going to look at public trust in KZN for the SAPS. And they say, look how before 2017 or 2018, KwaZulu-Natal had a higher average of public trust in the police than what they have today. And then they show because he became the commissioner in 2018. And this is fine. Look how far it's dropped. Oh, damn, he's just such a bad police commissioner. And then they look, of course, at violent crime, or contact crime, rather. And they show how since he took office, that has increased. The one problem that I have with both of these is it vastly, in my opinion, overestimates the ability for police commissioners to do anything. Remember, South Africa we're set up like a federal state. Right? Our constitution is written as if we should be a federal state. The problem is that when the NP and the ANC were negotiating the new constitution of South Africa, the NP didn't push nearly hard enough for the full federalization of the state. So you have, for example, things like the police. The police are completely controlled from the Minister of Police. Therefore, a commissioner has very limited power over what they can or cannot do. And you hear, for example, in the allegations made by General Mkhwanazi, this is exactly his problem. right? At every single turn, when they try to investigate political killings, when they try to go after corruption cases, from the top, these cases would either be killed, their resources would be pulled, their funding would be pulled, or dockets would just go missing, and people at the top would just be involved in all of this. That's at least his allegations. So looking at these charts, comparing it to the allegations made, it kind of tracks, right? He's sick and tired of being blamed for things that he himself isn't involved in. And while he's trying to do his job, it's impossible because they keep destroying evidence, they keep interfering, right? So all of that gets us to this, right? Yesterday, I believe this happened yesterday, Baur van Niekerk, a lawyer working specifically in insolvency litigation and business rescue litigation, was murdered in his offices in Saxonwold, Johannesburg. There were four men who, well, first he received a message, a call from what is said to be an Afrikaans lady that told him, this was earlier in the week, resign or die. So make with that what you will. The company itself involved in this is a company called NTC Global Trade Fund. The director for NTC Global is called Edwin Letopa. He's the only one, as far as I can tell, at least according to literally all of the searches that I've done. He's the only name that shows up. Now, NTC Global Trade Fund, very weird company, and reading through this article will not help you understand what they do. I had to do a phenomenal amount of looking, but it appears as if they're an arbitrage company that sort of works in the crypto space. Now, I have my own thoughts on crypto, and I have a lot of disagreements with people who all in on crypto. I'm not saying crypto is bad, but I think it does have its limitations. But effectively, they would take crypto investments, they would then use companies that would invest their own money. They would then use that money through crypto to give out arbitrage loans. These arbitrage loans could then be used by companies to build businesses. These businesses would then give return, and that's how these people were paid back. Now, NTC Global Trade Fund has been under government investigation for a while now because the government insists that this is a Ponzi scheme. NTC Global Trade Fund has, in the meantime, been able to convince the court, at least, that they are likely not a Ponzi scheme, and they insist that their business is patented, their business works, and they actually do offer the returns that they offer. But this is an ongoing case. Now, Baur van Niekerk was specifically representing about 20 or so creditors trying to get their money back from the NTC Global Trade Fund when he received this call telling him to resign or die, and he refused to resign, at least according to people close to the matter. He was just like, these threats actually just whet my litigation appetite. He continued with it, and then on Friday, four men arrived at his offices. Two stayed in the vehicle, a GWM, I think they were driving. At least according to the police. I don't know cars all that well, so I'm going off of memory here. But two men stayed in the car. The other two went up to his boardroom. They had a meeting set up with him, fake business meeting for a new case that they were bringing to him. And then people heard gunshots inside the boardroom. The two men escaped, and they are currently still at large. Now, the man who originally worked the case and the lead attorney on this is a man by the name of Kurt Noop. Now, Kurt Noop has received similar threats, and apparently Kurt Noop did resign earlier this week as a result of all of the threats that were coming his way. This, of course, isn't the first time that this has happened. You have Klute and Thomas Murray. This was a father and son pair of litigation attorneys that dealt with the same business rescue, trying to get money from companies that enter business rescue. They were also murdered about 2.5 years ago, and the murderers are still at large. The police has no idea who did this. The Meneer also no idea who actually did this. And apparently there is security footage of the men and there's security footage of the vehicle. Whether or not they will be arrested, that remains to be seen. The point here, right, and we don't know whether or not NTC, because they say that NTC Global Trade Fund is the most likely suspect in the case, but it's not obvious that that's the only, because he did have other cases, and it may have been one of these other cases. The point here more is we live in a country where the police themselves are most likely involved to some extent with these criminals. That's why these people are still out on the streets, still able to do business and make money and murder with impunity anyone that they disagree with. And no one ever gets caught. There's no law in this country except for the law that the government seeks to impose. And the government only seeks to impose the laws that are punitive against the citizens. If you or I, as a citizen, did anything wrong, we would immediately be prosecuted by this government. But when it's criminals that's just doing criminal stuff, they couldn't care less, right? In that case, please continue doing what you're doing. We would love to see more of this. This is just so needless. And this is the kind of stuff that's holding South Africa back. This is the kind of stuff that international investors look at and they go, what's the point? Why would I want to go do business in a country where if I step on the wrong toes, I can just be murdered, right? They'll just go into my office and they'll kill me because I'm in the wrong business. We know, for example, here in the Western Cape, the construction mafia, if you're not part of that mafia, they will make your life a living hell until you stop building, because they and they alone control everything. You have to buy from their preferred suppliers. You have to pay protection money, all the rest of it. And they can do this with impunity. And the construction mafia isn't just here, by the way. You have the coal mafias just stealing all of the coal, sabotaging the power plants. Every element of our society is riddled with this corruption. And it is because we have a government that, when it suits them, looks the other way. This has allowed people like the taxi industry, the mafias around the country, in every single sector, to become emboldened. And effectively, I think we should admit at this point, South Africa is a mafia state. It's no longer a country governed by law and order. It's a country governed by the mafia. And as long as you don't get in the way, as long as you don't upset the mafia, you're fine. You can do whatever you want. The second you do start to upset the mafia, you're dead. They will just remove you. And I think that is incredibly dangerous. The fact that we are there suggests that this country may be further gone than any of us actually may have thought. Let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about this, and of course, everything else that's going on in this country. It's absolutely crazy, I know. But if you like what I do and you want to see more people have access to the kind of content that I make, please consider hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and leaving a comment, because it truly does help. Massive shout out and thank you to all of the patrons as well as the YouTube channel members. To become a YouTube member, just hit the join button below this video or click the link in the description down below. As always, ladies and gentlemen, be good to each other, be kind to each other, have a lovely weekend, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.